Welcome back, everybody, to What Do You Know with Nick and Devin. I am Devin.
And I'm Nick.
Yay.
Yay, we did it.
We did it. We're well into the new year. I don't remember if we said Happy New Year in our last episode, but hey, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Do you have any resolutions?
You did ask me that, and I said no.
I asked you that already. Yeah, you don't like resolutions.
I don't.
You're like, I just live my life the way I live my life.
Exactly.
And then you went and you spit into a can.
Yeah. You know me, just chewing tobacco all the time.
Just spitting away.
But you did ask me, related to years, briefly before I hit the record button, if I'd rather live in the 70s or 80s.
Yeah, and you said...
And I said 80s because there wasn't an oil crisis. Like
which is ridiculous.
I think it's a fair point. But I'm going to turn that question back to you.
Oh, what day and age?
Yeah. No, only the 70s and 80s. Not like you don't have a whole choice. You only gave me two choices. I'm giving you two choices.
That's fair. Does your answer change if I give you the whole gambit?
Probably not, but
1790 is really where you want to throw your hat into the ring.
I would a good smallpox.
Right. When the calf was like in and like sexy, which is crazy to think about. Like that's why like there's so many paintings of people like men with like their legs pointed out and like the heels and stuff because the calf was like the sexual like area of the body.
That's
which
why
is,
I
like,
work out my calves.
Every day you're just doing little calf lifts
while I'm brushing my teeth up and down.
I can't wait for this to circle back into society. Totally.
Fashion's cyclical.
You're going to be ready for it. We'll get you some high socks just for that.
Perfect.
I would probably say... I'd probably go with the 80s.
Yeah.
But the 80s only because I'm not a big fan of the clothing in the 70s. It's really kind of the clothes aspect for me.
All right, that's fair.
There was also the only like downside, like me, like thinking about me living in the 80s is like the AIDS epidemic.
Yeah.
Right. So like pros and cons, you have to kind of weigh your options.
Right. You can have a bunch of cocaine,
right,
but also AIDS.
Honestly, I'll take the cocaine. You know what I mean? Like, it's fine. I'm good with that.
Yeah, I feel like I could do better in the 80s culture just because of like I mentioned punk, the whole punk scene.
Yeah.
Mullets were great back then. I love a good mullet. And
you had a mullet at one point recently.
I did.
What, like 3 years ago?
Yeah. At the start of the pandemic, I was like, oh, this is my apocalyptic haircut.
This is my time.
And then I think too, just the evolution or the birth of modern technology in the 80s is so fascinating. I would love to be one of those like little hacker nerds.
Control Alt. What is that show? Control Alt Delete? Is that what it is?
That's a computer command. Are you thinking of Halt Catch Fire?
Yeah, that's what. Because then I started thinking, it's something with fire. But wasn't there also an Angelina Jolie movie like that?
There are a lot of movies with Angelina Jolie.
Okay.
I don't know if you know that she's a quite famous actor.
I meant surrounding like Halt Catch Fire. Alt Catch Fire? Halt Catch Fire.
Halt and
Halt
Catch Fire. It is actually, if I remember correctly, at the beginning of the show, like episode 1, season 1, they're like, oh, Halt and Catch Fire is like some type of phrase in the early computer industry where your shit just kind of like you overclock your stuff that you're working on to see what will break it or something like that. I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
Maybe that'll be a minute mini-sode.
How cute.
Perfect.
I like the way you plugged our mini-sodes.
Yeah.
Watch them.
Cool. So we both said the 80s.
Uh-huh.
And that's funny because this is actually related to my topic, the 80s.
The 80s? Is your topic on the 80s?
No, not the whole decade.
We just take out an encyclopedia. January 1st, 1980.
Right. Yeah. We just play an old episode of VH1's I Love the 80s.
Yes. I'm down for
that. So what do you know about the Chicago Tylenol murders?
Bum, bum, bum. Actually, not a lot.
Oh, perfect.
I feel like I listened to something on this once, and I guarantee you, as you talk about things, like things might pop into my memory. But as of right now, Absolutely nothing.
Perfect.
Just that they happened.
I love that.
Did they kill anyone? They killed people.
Yes.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
Couple people.
Yes.
We'll get to it.
Yeah. You'll find out.
Next time, huh?
Yeah. And like, I think this might be one of the only, I don't want to say this. I'm going to say like, it's going to be one of the only murders I do, because I don't want this to become a true crime podcast.
This is our step in our decline into that. Yeah.
This is the downfall of the podcast. I know in our bylines we said if Joe Rogan, burn everything. But I think like Joe Rogan / true crime podcast.
It's actually subsection B. It is true crime as well. Yeah.
All right. So Chicago Tylenol murders.
Yes. Tell me more.
It was a case that was never solved.
I really need the Dateline music under that.
So let's go to 1982, Chicago metropolitan area.
Yeah.
Specifically, September 28th. 12-year-old Mary Kellerman was hospitalized and then later died the next day after consuming extra-strength Tylenol.
Extra strength to a child?
I guess maybe they cut it in half. I don't know.
She's like, I have a small headache. And they're like, here.
Right.
Was the 80s. Okay, that's sad.
September 29th. 6 more people are hospitalized and later died after consuming Tylenol.
See, you doing that doesn't help that we could jump into a true crime podcast very well.
Yeah. Well, here we are. All right. So the 6 people that died, because I feel like I should read their names.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We also glossed over that.
Were Adam Janis, age 27, Stanley Janis, age 25, Teresa Janis, age 20, Mary McFarland, aged 31, Paula Prince, age 35, and Mary Reiner, age 27.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting that they were all like around the same age.
Yeah, that's interesting.
There isn't really a connection there aside just from like, oh, look at that weird pattern.
Are they all in the same area?
They're all in the Chicago metropolitan area, so like the Chicago and the suburbs.
Yeah. Okay.
Greater Chicagoland area, if you want to throw that phrase out there.
But not like all of like the Northwest burbs or like the Southwest, like whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have out of nowhere these 7 people just dying, and we only know that they have died since consuming extra strength Tylenol capsules.
Oh.
Weird.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna enter in Arlington Heights' only public health official, Nurse Helen Jensen.
Is she a suspect? Oh no, we like her.
No. Yes.
Okay. It's like, what did Helen do?
She is the public health official for Arlington Heights, and Helen is asked to investigate the deaths of the Janis family.
She's out in the case.
Yeah, the first 3 people I listed were all part of the Janis family. They all died.
Oh, the 12-year-old and then the other 2?
I'm sorry. It was Adam, Stanley, and Teresa.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah. So Helen visited the Janis home and discovered the open Tylenol bottle. She saw that there was a receipt for the bottle indicating that it was also purchased the same day, as well as 6 pills were missing.
Oh, okay.
So now we see, they all consumed Tylenol from this one bottle.
Okay.
So Helen sent over this evidence to an investigator named Nick Pisos, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, Pisohs.
Oh.
To confirm her suspicions that the Tylenol was somehow involved with these people's deaths. Because there wasn't any indication of like malice towards these people where it could be a homicide or anything like that. Didn't seem like a suicide or anything like that either. So what the fuck? So Nick takes the evidence to the deputy chief medical examiner for Cook County, Dr. Edmund Donahue.
Oh, okay.
Now, Dr. D is like, this is kind of crazy.
Dr. D.
Dr. D.
Thank you.
Dr. D in the morning.
Of course, it was kind of crazy to Dr. D. He's a wild man.
Yeah. So Dr. D takes this evidence, thinks about it for a moment, and he's like, hey, Nick. You.
Yeah.
I need you to smell the bottle that Helen had given you.
It's a little weird. Okay.
A little weird. Nick takes a whiff. Nice sound effect. That was great. So Nick confirms that the bottle has an almond-like scent. We're adding more evidence. You know what it means?
Oh, yeah, I think
so. What does it mean?
Cyanide.
How do you know that cyanide smells like almonds?
Don't worry about it.
All right. See you on the next True Crime podcast.
Yeah, I think cyanide smells like almonds, and then something else smells like pennies. I don't remember. That's not helpful. But
pennies is usually because you smell copper, and that's usually blood. Like if you have like blood in your mouth, or like if you smell copper, it's usually blood related. All right, Dr. D.
Oh yeah.
Nick is smelling the bottle. It smells like almond.
Mm.
And Dr. D has this idea of what could have gone wrong.
Okay.
Here, what could have happened, and so he loops in Michael Schaefer.
Okay.
Who is the county's chief toxologist, and Dr. D wants Mike to test the capsules.
Okay.
And after some examination and tests being ran in their labs, Schaefer's team proved Dr. D's suspicions was correct. The remaining 44 capsules from the bottle of Tylenol found in the Janus home contained... This is actually not worthy of a drum roll at all.
Thanks for the setup.
Contained 3 times the fatal amount of cyanide.
Oh my God. Now, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So was it coated, or was it like substituted out, or are there compounds in Tylenol that are similar to cyanide and it was just not produced correctly?
It was, so these are capsules. So capsules are like the little plastic casings that you can undo and add in whatever you want.
Right.
And then re-put the capsules on.
Right.
So we will find out later exactly where the cyanide comes in.
Okay,
but I'm just giving you that these were the capsules, not the tablets.
Sure. Okay. Got it.
So for anyone wondering, a fatal dose of cyanide can be...
you imagine if I just like pulled that out of my back pocket?
Well, you already knew what cyanide smells like, so I'm a little nervous. My coffee smells a little almondy.
Brian wants at some point to have like, of course, like a whole greenhouse, but he wants like a little smaller one for like poisonous like plant. Oh. And I was like, that makes me extremely nervous.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't need that for any reason.
You can only cook your own food.
I'm gonna have to have a taster. Like,
a royal taster.
Yeah, exactly.
So failed dose of cyanide for someone can be as low as 1.5 milligrams per kilogram of body weight.
Oh,
just put it out there.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Just letting people know how to kill people. Way to go, PSA.
Luckily, because of this off scent, one bottle was actually purchased by Linda Morgan, but was never used. So she was able to smell this almond. She's like, that's not right. I'm not going to take any pills.
See? That's why you need to know. So when you smell almond in your things, you don't eat it.
You don't eat it.
Well,
unless you're having like an almond croissant.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. We have these murders. We find out what killed them. Mm-hmm. We have these people that had died. We found out what killed them. And so now the public is informed and advised not to take any Tylenol until further notice.
Huge hit to Tylenol.
Huge hit to Johnson & Johnson, the manufacturer of Tylenol. J&J.
JJ.
So furthering the investigation, the team gets kind of lucky and learned that the bottle that 12-year-old Mary had used was inventoried and actually came from the same lot as the Janus bottle, lot MC2880.
Thank God. Okay, here's my quick question.
Yeah.
And maybe if you get into this, let me know. How did they connect? Like, yes, it's all Chicagoland, but how were they like, all of these murders are connected? Does that come in a bit?
Yeah.
Because, like, if they're not in the same... Like, yes, it's within, like, Chicagoland, but if it's, like, these people were killed by cyanide, and then down on the south side, one girl was killed by poisoning, like, I just wouldn't necessarily, like, link them.
They're all cyanide.
Right.
They all died by cyanide.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, like, I wouldn't, like, yes, that is kind of odd, but I don't
Okay.
know if I would necessarily, like, right away link this family up here and this person down here into the same murder by cyanide. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yes, but I think murder by cyanide isn't very common. So to have 7 people all die by cyanide within a 2-day period is a little
suspicious,
funky.
God, I gotta change some plans going forward. Okay, fair. That makes sense.
Yeah. So we find out that the bottle from 12-year-old Mary and the Janice family bottle were all from the same lot.
Okay.
And from there, Johnson & Johnson issues a recall for all Tylenol coming from that lot.
Oh.
But then tainted bottles were soon discovered to come from other lots. So the bottle from a different family came from a different lot than the Janice and Mary lot. So like MC2880 wasn't the only lot that had poisoned Tylenol.
Yeah. Okay. So now it's like a real issue. It's not like we can just pull this lot out of commission.
Right.
Now we're in a cluster.
So now J&J their recall expands to any bottle of extra strength Tylenol capsules bought in the Chicago area. And this actually came to be one of the largest pharmaceutical recalls ever.
Wow.
Yeah. It was
bad. Where do you take it? Your local pharmacy?
I don't know. I've never had a drug recalled. Like I've had car parts recalled and like you just take it to the dealer and they replace it for you. So
I never did that.
You're welcome.
Thinking about that. I was just thinking about like a huge warehouse. There's like a line of people, and they all have their Tylenol bottle. Yeah. And then it's one guy who takes the bottle, and then there's a guy next to him who then takes that bottle and smells it.
Right.
And then it's either over his left shoulder or his right shoulder. And it's just succinct like that. We should make that movie. That's funny. Sorry.
A whole movie.
Yeah, it's just that for 2 hours.
It's more like a screensaver. All right, so the investigation then discovers that tampered bottles sold or on the shelves in multiple areas across the Chicago area. So it's not just in Arlington Heights. There was a Jewel in Arlington Heights, like I said, and then also one in Elk Grove Village. There was an Osco in Schaumburg that had sold a tainted bottle.
Not Jewel.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, just saying, like, not Jewel. Like,
yeah. This, yeah. Fun fact, Jewel and Osco didn't combine to become Jewel Osco until 1983.
Oh.
Yeah, they were owned, I believe, by the same company, but they operated whereas Jewel's was just the food part, like it is for Jewel Osco, and then Osco was just like a pharmacy. But then they combined to make one superstore.
I was about to ask you if you say, is it Jewel or Jules?
Jules. Everything has an extra S. Myers, Jules.
Wendy's.
Well.
Although Brian and I get into this all the time, is it White Castle or White Castles?
I don't say that place often enough because I don't
go there. Yeah. No. There was one by their house growing up, and he's like, oh yeah, let's go to White Castles. And I was like, there's one castle.
But there's one Jewel.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's different. I say Jewel. I don't say Jules.
Oh. All right.
I said, can we go to Jewel? But I never say Jewel Osco. That's too much.
No.
Yeah.
No, we have a nickname with Jewel.
Right. We're pretty close with Jewel. All right.
So there was also bad bottles sold at a Walgreens and a Dominick's in Chicago.
Oof,
like
R.I.P. Dominick's.
City proper. I know, right? Mm-hmm. And then a Frank's Finer Foods in Winfield also had a bad bottle. So Johnson & Johnson from here halted Tylenol production, and they stopped advertising and then even released a warning to hospitals and distributors being like, hey, you might have some tainted Tylenol.
Yeah.
Don't use it.
Oh, shit.
Send it all back. So there was a weird discovery of a chemical called, and I'm going to screw this one up.
Okay.
Strychnine.
Oh, strychnine.
Strychnine.
Mm-hmm.
That one.
Mm-hmm.
which is a highly toxic pesticide. And that was being added to Tylenol bottles in California. Unrelated to these cyanide deaths, but because of this, Johnson & Johnson was like, fuck me. Nationwide recall. All Tylenol's gone. October 5th, 1982. Nationwide recall for Tylenol.
So how
massive
within a month span they went from local recall to nationwide?
Within just a few days, because the first death, little 12-year-old Mary, was September 29th.
Oh,
so just a few days later, this is October 5th, 1982.
Damn. I mean, one, at least they moved fast.
Yeah.
And two, at least it wasn't like a month or two later and they were like, oh, now we have to recall nationwide.
Right.
Damn, that's insane.
Yeah, so this was, at the time, approximately 31 million bottles were in circulation that had to come back.
Jesus.
And this was $100 million worth of product in 1982 money.
Ooh.
So today, that's $318,830,052.
Yeah, it's a big chunk.
It's a
big chunk of change.
That's a lot.
I'm really surprised that they didn't tank them. I mean, their hands and other stuff, so fine, but like, oof.
Yeah, they're. I go into a little bit later, but like their stock shares just plummeted.
Oh, that was the time to buy Johnson & Johnson.
Right. See, that's why we live in the 80s.
Fair. Yeah, see, that's when we get in.
So Johnson & Johnson put out through advertisements and the national media, etc., for people not to consume any J&J product containing acetaminophen.
Okay.
So like it wasn't just Tylenol, it was any pill that you were going to be popping that had acetaminophen. You're like, no. Don't do that. Just for safety's sake. And so the capsules, like I described earlier, were only the ones tampered with. So J&J also put out, and they offered to exchange all Tylenol capsules already purchased for the tablet alternative.
Nice.
And I believe like the difference between a capsule and a tablet is that it was supposed to be like easy to digest and absorb, like it was going to be easy to break down.
Yep.
Slide down your gullet kind of deal, compared to a tablet where it's like, oh, this is so dry, but it's like whatever. So it turned out that the tainted capsules were actually manufactured in two different plants. So this is where we're going to get into more of like, how is this happening?
Okay.
So we're finding out that the capsules were manufactured in two different plants, one in Pennsylvania and one in Texas.
Oh.
So because of this information coming to light and not them being anywhere in Chicago, and they checked the plants being like, yeah, all your product is fine. We're only having cyanide problems in the Chicago area. What the fuck?
Right.
So this led the investigators to believe that the meds were tampered with after the product had already reached the shelves in the stores.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So the working theory by the police was that someone went around to all these stores, put potassium cyanide in some of the capsules, put the bottles back on the shelf, and then were later bought by unsuspecting customers.
Oh, because it's not today, right? In the sense of like everything today is like in a cardboard box. The bottle's in the box. So like if I was to walk up and get a box and I saw that it was open, I wouldn't get that box. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but this was just a bottle on a shelf that I could easily open. Like I'm sure there weren't even child things.
Box.
Yeah,
right.
I know. You could just like pop that shit open. So okay, that makes sense.
So the year finishes out, 1982 finishes out, and we're at the top of 1983. And the FBI, getting involved in this investigation, had the Chicago Tribune publish the address and grave location of the first victim, 12-year-old Mary Kellerman. So the address of her home and then where her grave was.
Okay.
The idea that they had, that this criminal analyst had working for the FBI at the time, was that they were going to try to lure the perp to the grave or the home of the victim, either from like guilt or just like the itch to a sick part of their brain or something like that, you know. And this was John Douglas, the criminal analyst for the FBI, who proposed this. Okay. But after having the grave and the home of Mary under 24-hour surveillance for several months.
Nothing.
No one showed up.
Damn. They were like, fuck it, move on.
Right. Cyanide, that was October 1982.
Right.
So one of the victims, Paula Prince, furthering this investigation, we see Paula Prince on surveillance, in a surveillance photo, purchasing one of the tampered bottles at a Walgreens at 1601 North Wells Street in Chicago.
Okay.
And in this photo, there was a bearded man just seen a few feet away from Prince, who CPD believes may have been the killer. Crazy. So it's fun. It's interesting. It's not funny. It's. Let me say it's a couple more times. It's. Since this case wasn't solved, I did want to say it's one more time. Since this case wasn't solved, it's just like, all right, here's this piece of evidence. Here's this piece of evidence.
Yeah.
It's just like, what are we gonna do? But there was one man actually arrested in relation to this incident, but not for the tampering itself.
What?
Yeah. So a name that may sound familiar is James William Lewis.
Okay.
He was convicted of extortion and sentenced to 10 years in prison.
Extortion of what?
Well, authorities accused James of sending a letter to Johnson & Johnson demanding $1 million to stop the murders. There's your extortion.
That's pretty smart. Like in like if I was also a con man, like not a bad idea. But don't get caught, like clearly.
Right. So when arrested, James told the police exactly how someone may have carried out these killings. He was arrested for this extortion, and then the police were questioning him. He was like, I didn't do it, but here's how I would have done it if I did.
He just like offered that up?
Buying Tylenol, add cyanide to the bottles, return it to the shelves. That's what he told the police. And he was like, that's what could have happened.
Wild.
Like, I think...
And they weren't like, let's press you a little bit more on that.
Right. I think, like, the ego of some of these people is just so massive that they, like, they just burn to have the recognition for doing this horrible shit. Also, while they were further investigating James, they also found out that he had a book on poison, just like a big old book of poison. And his fingerprints could be found on the pages related to cyanide.
And nothing? And only extortion?
Well, eventually James did admit to writing the letter. Okay. But continued to deny involvement with the poisonings. And so it was just this constant back and forth. And he had... during this time, when he admitted to writing the letter, James was like, yeah, I wrote the letter. It took me 3 days to write. And, but he was like, but I still didn't do the killings. I told you how someone might have done it, but I only wrote the letter.
They're like, which we didn't ask you about.
They're like, hey, can we get you a glass of water? But this is how I would have done the murders.
Right. This is my OJ novel.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, James serves his sentence for 10 years, 1993, but we're going to jump to 2007.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the authorities look at the case again.
Oh, okay.
And they, every now and then, they reopened it in 2007 and a couple times later throughout, and they're like, we have new technology, we have better ways to investigate crimes. Let's just take a peek at this old case.
Yeah.
So we're in 2007, authorities are looking at it again, and they determine that the postmark of the letter that James sent was for October 1st, 1982.
Okay.
So if James had actually worked on the letter for 3 days, then he would have had started before any news of the first murder had gone public.
I was going to say before the recall.
before the recall, before anyone knew about these people dying, before anyone knew that the cyanide was in the Tylenol.
Oh, shit. And they didn't catch that back in the 83?
I guess not.
Oh, damn.
I don't know. It was the 80s.
Yeah.
They were focused on just like beating people up all the time. Still are.
But at least no oil crisis.
No oil crisis. So presented with this information, James was like, okay, fine. I didn't do the killings, but let me adjust my timeline a little bit of when I wrote these letters, and we're all going to be great. Also, here's how I would have done the murders if I had.
Again? No. I was like, oh my God.
I just imagine like anytime they talk to James, he's like, I didn't do it, but here's how I would have done it.
Like, James, we get it. You did it.
So in 2009 and 2010, the case against James was reopened again. Just one more time, they wanted to collect some DNA samples and fingerprints from James and his wife. Mm-hmm. And there was no match on the tainted bottles, which was interesting.
Okay.
However, in early 2009, court documents were released that stated, quote, "The Department of Justice investigators concluded Lewis was responsible for the poisoning, despite the fact they did not have enough evidence to charge him."
Dang.
So, like, we're like, we can't charge him, but, like, we fucking know he did it.
Right.
He told us how.
And no fingerprints, like, on the capsules?
Nothing.
Damn.
Right. So it's interesting.
He's sneaky like that.
James Lewis actually wound up dying at the age of 76 on July 9th, 2023.
Oh, wow.
In his home in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Due to cyanide poisoning?
No, it was there was no, according to the articles, there was like no crazy reason of him dying. It was just kind of like natural causes.
Okay.
And it didn't seem like all the news articles was like it wasn't foul play, and I was like, the fact that you're saying a lot of foul play makes me think
there was foul play.
Right. So
the ghost of little Mary came back.
Right. So James wound up dying just this past year, July 9th, and never receiving any charges related to the poisonings, just the extortion.
Wow.
Right.
And just a statement of, he did it.
Right. Everyone knows you did it, you son of a bitch.
You son of a bitch. That's crazy.
Yeah. Police actually investigated 2 other suspects as well as James during this. I mean, they investigated a lot of people, but these were the 2 main ones. So we had Roger Arnold.
Okay.
Who was a dock worker for Jewel in Melrose Park. And he, when he was taken into the station, he told the officers, he was like, yeah, I had potassium cyanide. What of it? And like, there were so many things that led up to him being investigated and arrested. One being that he admitted to owning or having potassium cyanide. Don't know why. He often ranted about wanting to kill people with a white powder while he was at the bar he frequented. He reportedly became increasingly erratic after his marriage fell apart. And then he also had a book containing instructions on how to make potassium cyanide. The book title, of course, being The Poor Man's James Bond.
Oh, what?
And this book was found at Roger's home.
And he's like, I didn't do it, I swear.
Right. And for some fucking reason, the police never pressed charges against him, even though all of this evidence is stacked up against him. They were really gunning for James. And so Roger Arnold actually winds up dying in 2008. And in 2010, they exhume his body so that they could take his femur bone and use it for DNA testing. And weirdly enough, his DNA didn't match any of the samples that were found on the bottles, the tampered bottles.
What?
Yeah.
But my thing is, like, it's a bottle in a grocery store. You know what I mean? Like, of course, other people's DNA is going to be on it.
Right. And if, like, you're going to put the bottle back on the shelf, why wouldn't you scrub it?
Exactly.
Remove all the DNA.
Like, of course they would.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. That's crazy. The poor man James Bond. Oh, my God.
Yeah, and I didn't include this in my notes, but, like, he wound up killing a man with a gun that he thought was the bartender who like ratted on him, because like the bartender at the bar he frequented told the police, he was like, yeah, this guy's just talking about fucking killing people with a white powder while slurping down old Milwaukee's. And I think that's concerning.
Yeah.
And so Roger Arnold like found this out and was like, I'm gonna kill him, and like winds up shooting an innocent man, thinking it was the bartender, but then realized it wasn't him, and he's like, I fucked up. And so then he served a really long prison sentence.
Yeah.
And while in prison, he was like, I really fucked up. I couldn't have done, like, I could have and should have done nothing, but now I have to live with the consequences. So I think he learned something,
I guess, for killing someone.
Yeah.
But then I guess at that point, that tells me that you didn't do the murders.
Right.
If you're like torn up about this one murder that you did,
right,
but you also killed 7 other people?
Yeah, 7
other people.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so you didn't do the murders. Right.
So that was kind of interesting. And plus, like, Roger, as far as I know, didn't leave the state. Like, because James went to Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Massachusetts.
So
So the other person that they investigated might sound a little bit more familiar. Ted Kaczynski.
Oh.
For those of you who don't know, Ted Kaczynski is more locally known or nationally known as the Unabomber.
Yeah.
So
EP High.
May 19th, 2011, just to, like, you know, be sure, the FBI knocked on Ted's door, and I don't know if
like,
that actually happened.
Again?
Yeah. They're like, like, just dropping off, like, our dish. He
right.
gave us cookies. So they talk to Ted, and they get some DNA samples from him. And they're like, we just gotta be sure. We don't know. It doesn't match his MO at all, but like whatever.
Just in case.
So of course nothing came up from these samples, and Ted denied possession of potassium cyanide. He was like, why would I have that shit?
Like, that's not my MO.
Right.
It's not explosive enough.
Yeah, right. But like, of course, like the FBI was just doing their due diligence because, for those who don't know, the first 4 Unabomber crimes happened in the Chicagoland area from 1978 to 1980. What I didn't know was that Ted and his parents had a house in Lombard.
Oh, really? Okay.
And he would spend some time there in 1982.
Interesting. Okay.
I didn't know that.
Outside of his cabin?
Right. So now we get into like the aftermath of all of this.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is a crime that goes unsolved. We've pinned it all on one guy, but nothing official.
Yeah.
So what's wild and kind of like what happens with a lot of these high profile cases is that hundreds of copycats spread across the country over the next few years and extended the wave of fear, as well as adding to the death toll.
Yeah.
Which is awful.
Like, if you're at the point where you are gonna murder people, like, at least be original.
No.
Like, at the very least, you know what I mean?
No, I don't. Why don't you tell me more?
I'm just throwing it out there.
Anyway.
I'm trying to stop copycat killings, is what I'm saying.
You're doing the Lord's work.
Thank you.
Anyway. So Johnson & Johnson, like I said, their market shares tanked, but eventually bounced back in the market and wound up settling out of court with all the affected families in Chicago. And they said, quote, "We wanted to do something for the families and finally get this tragic event behind us."
Yeah.
End quote. So they were just like, this is awful. We feel bad for everybody. Here's money to help you.
Yeah.
It's not going to do much for you, but at least it's something.
Right.
And because of this, this horrible event, we developed tamper-resistant packaging.
Hey, there it is.
Yeah, and actually Johnson & Johnson was like, we are now going to put our bottles in a box with a tamper-resistant packaging, and we're just going to seal it all up, and no one can fucking touch it.
That's awesome. So they started the cardboard box?
I don't know if they started it, but they started putting their products in cardboard boxes as well. And that's why you see when you open a new bottle of pills or new medicine, it's, hey, if you see the seal is broken right after you bought it, don't touch it.
Don't do it.
Because of this.
Right.
And it's actually now a federal crime to tamper with products. Not just pharmaceutical products, any products anywhere.
Wow.
So, like, if you see those disgusting TikToks of people, like, licking ice cream in the store and then putting it back on the shelf, it's federal crime. You haven't seen those?
No.
They're awful.
Like, they, like, open up the lid and then, like, lick ice cream and then... Why?
And then put it back. For the views, baby.
I hate this.
Yeah, me too.
I hate that's okay. Anyway,
and the final thing to come out of this tragic event was actually the development of caplets and moving away from capsules. So there's the caplets, which are kind of like a combo of the tablets and capsules.
Yep.
Put them together. That's why you get caplets.
Thank you. How do words work?
And yeah, they're also supposed to be like easy to dissolve and digest and go
like
down the gullet.
I'm thinking of like Advil. Has like the liquid
like
gel
the coating.
things.
Yeah, the coating on your ibuprofen and whatnot.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Caplets.
Nice. Not the Capulets.
No. And the Montagues.
No. That doesn't tie into the story, Devin.
Well, those are the Chicago Tylenol murders.
Yeah, what a fun, okay. We keep on saying
it wasn't fun.
Right.
Right.
What an interesting and intriguing step into the true crime world.
We need to bring in a thesaurus into this
Truly,
podcast.
we really do. I think, like, colloquially, we just use fun too often. Mm-hmm. We're just trying to have a grand time. Okay?
What a neato story.
No, we're fine.
All right.
That's not in the thesaurus. Anyway, well, thank you for taking us through that.
No problem.
And now we know why you can't get your pill bottle lid off the pill bottle.
Yeah, and you have to like punch through that dang foil.
You're like, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
just try. You already have a headache. You're just trying to get some relief.
The worst. That's why I always open them like as soon as I bring them home. It's like, I don't want to deal with this while I have a migraine.
That's fair. Well, also Excedrin migraine. The best thing in the world.
Oh, it's incredible.
Incredible. When they took that off the shelves for a minute, I was like, no.
I stocked up. When I heard that they were taking it away, really? I was like, okay, I need to buy several bottles. And then they brought it back, and I was like, phew.
Oh, God, thank God. You just have to ration yourself.
No, I was terrified. I get so many migraines. So does Allie. It's awful.
Why did they recall them? Do you remember? Or take them off?
I think it was just...
like, this isn't great for you.
Yeah. That.
People were like, no, it's the best.
Yeah, because it's... I mean, it's like it's Tylenol and then with caffeine as well. So,
oh yeah,
you just get fucked up, but it's great for migraines.
We love a blood thinner. All right. Anyway, thank you, Devin. People, as you're listening, make sure to follow us at WDYK_podcast, and that is universal on all social media platforms now.
Heck yeah.
Do all the things like subscribe. Watch our mini-sodes.
Yeah, check out our mini-sodes. They release every Friday in the afternoons. So check those out. They're little tidbits about things that we couldn't make a full episode about.
Yeah, so they're fun. Little informational things. So, yeah. All right, so that's all I have.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. All right, bye.
Bye.